listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me?
With your host, Brandon Tierney. In 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? I admit I am, what's the right word? I am a little torn and I am a little confused here. And I'm talking about the quarterback situation around the NFL, specific to the Jets, but also specific to the Vikings and Miami and the Falcons. So I want to talk about that out of the chute. I do want to let you know early, though, and we get this up there now. Tomorrow, we've got a big guest on the show. So it's the second guest coming on. I had Sal. Now, tomorrow we start busting out. Not that Sal's not a heavy hitter. I don't mean it like that. But now we start tapping into the Rolodex a little bit here. And my good buddy, who I've known forever, Michael Kay, will join me tomorrow at 10:15. So I'll start the show. I'll give you about 15 minutes or so of content. And me and Michael chop it up for a good 45 minutes, maybe longer. Can't wait. It's funny. Michael, I've known Michael for just over 20 years at this point. My goodness. Now, I don't see him that much, but we never lost contact. The last time I saw him was at Alex's Christmas party in December. And he's a rock star, man. He's the voice of the Yankees, as you know. He still has his radio show. And I can't wait, like these interviews that we do, whether it's Stephen A., who I'm going to have on soon. I know LeGrec is going to come on soon as well. We'll get Booney up. We'll get Alex up. We'll get Patino up. We'll get a lot of big names up. But when I do the interviews here, to me, I use the word interview. It's really more of a conversation. There are so many things to talk to Michael about. Obviously, we're going to absolutely crush the Yankee talk. That's a given. But, also the old radio wars and what it was like going up against Francesa back in the day and just how much radio's changed. And even some of the early stories at 1050, it was wild, man. So when they started 1050, I was working in Detroit. And then, so what year? That would have been, I think it was right before September 11th is when they launched. So obviously 2001. So I came 2 years later, and I was there from 03 through the middle of 2011. So again, I know Michael really, really well. I think it's going to be awesome. I reached out to him. I said, hey, let's go. Got to get you on. And these will be conversations. Yeah, of course, I'll ask him some questions, but this is going to be great. J-Rod, you would tell me some of your buddies are fired up about this, huh?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of my homies who, are from the New York City area, been following Michael Kay for a while, just listening to him, seeing the clips, obviously, as we've grown up. And so, they're super fired up for the episode.
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm going to talk to him about this. It's amazing to me. He gets a lot of slack for this, but I don't care. I really have, and I also don't get inundated with stuff like he does as the voice of the Yankees, but he gets a lot of hate, and he gets a lot of trolls who jump into his timeline there, and he engages them. I want to ask him why, and we've talked about it a little bit off the air privately. I think it's going to be a really, really fun, good conversation. Hey, the WBC starts on Friday. I've actually got what I hope is going to be Team USA's lineup. I'll get to that in a little bit. All right, so why I'm very confused here. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. What else is new? The Jets are one of them. What else is new? And there's really a dearth of appealing options in terms of the draft. Once you get past Mendoza, as we've discussed here on the show, I do like Ty Simpson. I would be okay. Now, there's more in the process, obviously. I would be okay if the Jets use that second pick. I don't think that they will. I think they're going defense, or defense wide receiver. I like Ty Simpson, and he had himself a very good combine weekend at Indianapolis over the weekend. So somebody's going to take him, and I believe that somebody's going to take him inside the top 15. However, it's not just the Jets. It's the Vikings who have to figure this out. As I said, it's Miami. Obviously, Tua is going to be a casualty there down in Miami. The Atlanta Falcons, Penix has been banged up. The situation with Kirk Cousins did not work out. He's going to be gone. Anyway, why I'm confused here, right, is there's a player who's going to be available. And if you told me, a couple of years ago, the Jets or any of these other teams, I don't want to just make it about the Jets. It's a broader topic, a broader concept. But that, from my point of view, if you told me that this player was going to be available 2 years ago, I would have been doing somersaults and cartwheels, or at least trying to get him to the Jets. And that's Kyler Murray. Now, there's a lot with Kyler Murray. Some good, some very confounding stuff. He's been banged up a lot. He's got the ridiculous contract. So first, there's the concept of, and what he is as a player. And then there's some of the noise that you hear. As a player, he's good. He's not special. He's never going to be special. And I do think he's fairly limited. I don't really think that he fits what the Jets are going to try to do with Frank Reich. I thought I saw that Boomer kind of dismissed that fast. And if not, I don't want to, incorrectly attribute it to Boomer, but he obviously knows Frank Reich really well. And I thought that he said the other day, I saw it on social media or somewhere in a comment, that that he gave a flat no, that the Jets wouldn't be interested in Kyler Murray, which I'm okay with, right? But I want to set this up, and then I want to present why the avenue to actually have it make sense, not just for the Jets, for these other teams, to entice the Cardinals to bite. Now, first we unpack a few things you got to know. He's still fairly young. He's 28. He's been banged up a lot. Now, the contract is a massive issue, all right? He's in the second year of a $230 million contract. He signed it back in 2022. He's got about $125 million guaranteed through 2028. So there's a lot of money. And certain teams, they just can't absorb that because they don't have the cap space. The move the Jets made with Jermaine Johnson, as I said yesterday, now this is not effective cap space because a lot of money is going to go to draft picks, et cetera, and free agents. They got to fill out the roster. But right now, the Jets have about $88 to $90 million, all right? So the ability to absorb that, just from a pure mathematical point of view, it's obviously there. Now, if $1 million, all right? $57 million, that's a lot of money. Now, if you want to do a post-June 1 designation, I know I'm getting a little weedsy here, but you have to with this stuff. If you do that, which the Jets, remember, they elected not to do that with Aaron Rodgers. They could have spread things out a little bit more, and the Jets could have done things a little bit differently. They elected not to. But if the Cardinals go post-June 1, he still is owed 50 change for 2026 and then $7 million or so in 2027. All right, so I just wanted to at least get the numbers out of the way. Now, you look at the top quarterback options and forget about the draft, forget about Mendoza, Simpson, or whatever else. Really the names, and this is pretty much a regurgitation of things we talked about here on the show. If you want to go find it, just scan the channel, hit the library. I've given you a lot of content on this. Obviously, leading up to it, it's a big story. So Malik Willis is going to get paid. The estimated thoughts right around 30 or 35 million bucks a year. I would love to see the Jets throw their hat in there. I think Miami's going to be very active there. I think a few other teams will be very active. I don't think that the Jets are looking at Malik Willis the way that I might. Okay. Touched on Kyler Murray. Going to get back to him. Kirk Cousins. I'll get back to Kirk Cousins in a minute. Mariota, all right, fine if that's the plan. Draft somebody and just have a good veteran in there. And then there's obviously guys who you either need to trade for or guys who need to get cut. The two is the Geno Smiths, Davis Mills, Mac Jones will be a trade. Tanner McGee back up for Philly behind Jalen Hurts. That's a name that you've heard a lot. Now, I've constructed a plan here where I actually think it makes sense for the Jets or anybody else to go out there and get Kyler Murray. But before I give you that, I've got to give you some very sobering numbers. And quite frankly, I did not even realize this. Now, I like Kyler Murray. I'm not enamored with Kyler Murray. A couple of years ago, I certainly was. There was great intrigue and a really interesting two-way explosive athlete. He could run, good arm as a baseball player. But Warren Sharp is a name who does some phenomenal work, right? J-Rod, do you know about Warren Sharp at all?
No, get me learned. Get me learned in Warren Sharp.
I got you. Well, he's basically just covers the sport. He does a really good job. He broke down on such a micro level. I have not seen this yet, and it's really, really bad, okay? So I want to give you the bad because I'm constructing a plan why it would ultimately make sense. Remember, I started this by saying I'm very confused. I know the Jets need an upgrade. I know Miami's got to do something. I know that the Falcons need to do something. The Browns might do something. I don't really know how they feel about Shedeur Sanders with the new staff. Either way, again, this is not just about the Jets here. So Warren Sharp did a deep dive. Now, I want to try to keep it somewhat simple. I don't want to just bombard you guys with numbers. I tried not to do this on the radio with like the baseball savant stuff. It becomes mentally paralyzing when just number. But this stuff really matters, all right? And I think that this will, if you're pro Kyler Murray, this will, I think, negatively transform your thoughts the other way. Anyway, in the last 4 years, now he's missed a lot of games, and I'll chronicle that in a minute as well. But of passes of 25 yards or more, all downfield stuff, 25 yards or more, he ranked 36 out of 36 eligible players, right, in completion percentage, and 36 out of 36 in yards per attempt. Absolutely hideous numbers, nowhere near reflective of anybody that deserves the contract that he got, and certainly nobody that you would really run, climb a mountain to try to go and acquire. I mean, that is very sobering. All right, you tell me, well, he does. All right, so he's not going to bomb away, even though he's got a baseball arm as a first-round pick of the A's back in the day. He does not connect, all right? The yards per attempt, doesn't take many shots downfield, and when he does, the completion percentage is paltry. That's a problem. All right, well, 25 yards is a pretty good shot downfield. Let's go incrementally. Again, this is all Warren Sharp. This is not me. Let's go 5 yards below that, and let's go from 25 yards down to 20. All right, maybe he's going to get a little bit better there. Where's he stack up? No, he still stinks. He is 40 out of 46 in completion percentage, and he is 42 out of 46 in yards per attempt. Stinks. All right, he doesn't like to throw the ball down the field. Not 25 yards, not 20. Let's get a little bit more of an intermediate route. Can you do that? Let's go to 15 yards or more, all right? Well, not good either. He is 42 out of 51 in completion percentage, and he's 47 out of 51 in yards per attempt. Those numbers are absolutely ridiculously bad. So we know he can run. We know he can make plays. We know he's had some good years, a couple of Pro Bowls, and he's sub 30, which is obviously good. And he hasn't really been in a good situation either. But now you get to the other aspect of trying to make a move for somebody like Kyler Murray, and he's always banged up. And listen, this is something I learned, whether it's me, who's always hurt, but more importantly, real athletes. Tiki told me this, and I said this the other day. Tiki brought this up when we were doing the national show very early. So I'm going back to like 2013, 2014. I remember the first time he said this. He's like, dude, there are certain guys who are just bad cell guys. They're just their body, the way God made them, they just don't stay healthy, and they're never going to stay healthy, and it's not going to change, right? So I think one of the foolish things in sports is to take somebody who's banged up a lot and then expect it to change radically. Like, it's one thing to think, out of arrogance or planning or confidence, whatever, hey, this guy was in a bad system, no O-line, no weapons that can win on the outside, very benign play calling. The defense stunk, so they were always down multiple scores, which made what they were going to do very predictable. So you couldn't really run it very much. You didn't have a good favorable split, run versus the pass, all that football stuff, which I do think matters and I do think applies, because there's a lot of guys who their first act was not very good. They got in a better situation, better O-line, better weapons, more stable coaching, better franchise, all that stuff that really does, especially for a quarterback, man. It is paramount that you have at least a few of those things. And then even if you're missing one or two, talent could elevate you to a place that is still very successful. But if you are hurt, like, the trainers are not going to be so much better in terms of preventative measures or getting somebody healthy when they're hurt. Like, it's a problem. The guy's always hurt, all right? So, and I'll get to the master plan in a second. You look at his injury history, and it started early. In 2021, he jacked up his ankle, and he missed multiple games. All right, it happens. Guys get hit, quarterback spot, running for your life, young quarterback, bad team, get it. You go to 2022, had a hamstring issue, and then he obviously missed a lot of time. He tore his ACL, and was that his PCL or his MCL? I think it was the medial. Either way, he shredded his ACL, missed a ton of time. Then you get to 2022, and he played only 8 of 17 games because he was rehabbing from the torn ACL, which obviously is, the timeline with the ACL. And then last year, and this was like where you're like, all right, man, it's just not going to work for this dude for the most part. Last year, he missed 12 out of 17 games. He had the Linz Frank injury. Chin-Ming Wong had that. If you're a big Yankee fan, remember that he got hurt running the bases in Houston. It is a mid-foot sprain, and it is anything but benign. It is a problem. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to be healthy this year, but like when you're dealing with that in real time, not good. The other thing that Warren Sharp did, And this was really interesting. And again, you've got to factor this in, especially for a team like the Jets, the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bills, the Patriots, like those Northeast teams that just play in consistent inclement weather when you get past Halloween. This was amazing. Based on when he was hurt and the amount of games that he played versus the ones that he missed, only 12, this is crazy. Only 12 of his 41 games were outdoors since 2022. And the numbers, and I'm going to stop hitting you with numbers here. Warren Sharp actually did this, but I'm going to stop because it's getting too much even for me. But if you do a micro deep dive into those games, playing 12 out of 41 games outdoors, the 12 games outdoors, the numbers were horrid. Okay. So smaller sample, hasn't played well outdoors, hasn't been healthy, hasn't been good throwing the ball downfield at all. And by the way, 15 yards downfield is not really downfield. Like that's, as I said, that's a very intermediate route. So all those things. Wait, I might have one more for you. Yeah, I do. I'm going to even take it down to 10 plus yards. Your boy did some research, all right? So, well, Warren did it, and then I found it. But if I wasn't looking for the research, I wouldn't have come across Warren's stuff, which is great. The last 4 years combined, throw it all in a blender, right? 10 yards. So we're basically talking a step above screen passes of at least 175 attempts or more. He was 36 out of 43 in completion percentage, which is just, good God almighty, that is just wretchedly bad. And 41 out of 43 in yards per attempt. And I think this is the last number. Of the 32 qualifying quarterbacks, he did not rank in the top 32 throwing downfield. This is just now an all encompassing of everything that I hit you with. 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, or 25 yards. So I guess the question really we can ask is, like, what the hell does he do well? He's not healthy, can't throw it past 10, can't throw it past 15, doesn't throw it past 20, and is awful throwing it past 20, 25. So why in the world am I about to tell you that not only the Jets, but any team that needs a quarterback, why in the world would I say that they should go out and engage with the Cardinals right now for a trade and not wait for him to be released? I'm going to tell you why. Because the incentive for Arizona is through the roof to shed that contract, which is why most people think that he's going to be released, which, by the way, I agree with. I think that that's probably what's going to happen, but I want to give the Cardinals something to think about. I'm calling them up, and Muji is the kind of GM, forward thinker, who's probably already kicking this around upstairs. I'm going to call up Arizona, and I'm going to tell them very simple. All right, we want to trade for Kyler Murray. Because we've got $90 million in cap space and about 60 in effective cap space, we can absorb it. So we're one of the we know you don't want him. You got to move on. First overall pick, didn't work out, hasn't won, banged up, not performing. And we know that you like Jacoby Brissett better, which, by the way, the Jets probably like Jacoby Brissett better as well. Doesn't turn the ball over. But how you engage the Cardinals is by giving them something to think about that I don't think any other team's going to do, and this is what it is. When you call them and talk to them about acquiring Kyler Murray, it's not just, hey, we want to trade for Kyler Murray. It's a step further. We want Kyler Murray, but we will only take him off your hands if you throw a nice pick in there. So you can do a couple of things here. If you're a bad team and you need a sizable upgraded quarterback, which the Jets and others absolutely do, well, the way you make this deal work is because you're taking on so much money of an undesirable contract, okay, you're getting them to give you a draft pick. Now, you're not going to get a first overall pick. So what would you get, genius? So you construct this plan. You're okay with Kyler Murray coming to the Jets. You've got a plan to get the Cardinals to at least think about it. How would the draft equity and the draft capital, how would it actually make sense? Here's the answer. The way you make it make sense is this. Because he's hurt a lot, you're not going to get the Cardinals to just give you like a premium pick. And for me, a premium pick is a second-round pick. Deal. That's got to stop happening. That's got to stop happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is going on here.
I told you it's the Wi-Fi. I got it's jacked up. I got to get fixed up. I will, whatever. But the way you make that look, nice transition there, J-Rob. Get right back to the content. Plow through. Hey, step over the little obstacle. Keep it moving. Good job, J-Rob. Way to be locked in today. So to me, I think a nice draft package in return would be let's start with a third rounder, all right? And if Kyler Murray does not play at least 9 or 10 games, and it's got to be because of injury designation. It can't be because and we're going to just sit him on the bench because we want to have this trigger to a more favorable draft pick because that's the deal we set up. You'd have to work that into the contract. And the Cardinals, if they don't, they're idiots, which, by the way, they might be. So think about this. You absorb all the money. It's going to be $50 million. Cardinals off the hook. They could get on with their business. The Jets have the money to do it. And by the way, the Vikings don't have the money to do it. I don't want to just keep it Jet specific. The Dolphins don't have the money to do it. And Atlanta does not have the money that the Jets have either. So the Jets are in a good spot to at least give them something to think about. Now, let's say they make a trade and they agree. All right, Kyler Murray, Jets, you absorb the money and they settle, even if it's a fourth round pick. Let's just go fourth, all right? Maybe I'm thinking too ambitiously here. Let's go fourth round pick. Well, if Kyler Murray doesn't play the X amount of games, whatever the allotment is determined during the trade, if he doesn't play X amount of games, that fourth round pick becomes a third. So if the Lins Frank gets jacked up or he pulls a hamstring or God forbid something else happens to I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but if something else happens, now the fourth becomes a third or the third becomes a two. It's basically incentive to have the Cardinals think about this because for the Jet, he's not good enough. All right. He's not enough of a difference maker, doesn't play well outside. I gave you all the other numbers. I don't need to just keep resetting that. So you've got to do something that gives the Jets incentive to want to do this. And then you've got to give something to the Cardinals to really think about. That's how you construct a deal. See, in my mind, right, there's always a way to make a trade. There's always an avenue. There's always a lane to get somebody to really contemplate, man, do we really want to do this here? We don't want to move forward with Kyler Murray, but man, we don't want this money on our books. It's just too burdensome here. The Jets, they'll take him off our hands for a fourth round pick or a third, even with it triggering up. If he's hurt again, I think that could be a way to get this done. I really do. Now, I also think that there's better options out there. And understand this, because when you make a trade for two reasons. Now, the first one is very obvious. You make a trade to get better. You make a trade to save jobs. Now, Muji doesn't have to do that because I think Darren Muji's distinguished himself pretty well early on, very well. You know, I've got profound belief in him as a general manager who reads the trade market well, is proactive, is aggressive, is out of the box, has shown some signs of drafting well, has shown some very good signs of being able to look at other rosters that other teams view as less desirable commodities, bring them in, whether it's the return game, Muji, they kept messing around with that. They found somebody who had multiple returns for touchdowns. Like, those are little moves that gives me confidence that Muji knows what he's doing. Absolutely. So you make a trade, obviously, to get better. The other way, though, and now I want to incorporate somebody like a Kirk Cousins and somebody like a Jacoby Brissett. The other reason why you make a trade is just to raise the floor, all right? And yes, to win some more games, to change perception, to change the energy and the stench, get rid of the stench of the building, which has swallowed up the Jets and some of these other teams for far too long. But I'm a big believer, like, even if you can make a trade, right? And the ultimate goal, at least in the moment, and the belief, the goal is nobody's going to sit there and say, oh, we have no chance to win the Super Bowl. Nobody thinks like that. If you do, you're an inherent loser. Even the worst teams, in their minds, they are, even if it's outlandishly, unattainable, to the common person like us on the outside looking in, they don't think that way. Because they think that their plan that they've crafted all offseason is going, even for the bad teams, the horrible teams, is going to be one that is going to be good enough to elevate them to be in the playoff mix. And then when you get to the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. All right. And it should never be based on rooting for injury ever. Certainly not for me. But, think about the AFC this year. And the Chiefs weren't the same team with Mahomes. They weren't the same offense with Mahomes because their stars were getting older, whatever. But Patrick Mahomes goes down. That changes the entire opening or the window for some teams. So I really think that the Jets, lesser extent, I think let me go to the 4 teams that are already outlined. So I think the Jets are in the position of just merely needing to elevate the floor to a more competitive, more aesthetically pleasing, more balanced presentation. That's the Jets. The Vikings got to win. All right, because a couple of years ago, the Vikings were really good with Sam Darnold. They let him go. Idiotic move. Sam wins the Super Bowl, gets paid, right? All that stuff, and rightfully so. And the Vikings are now left with a roster. You know, you very well might have the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. You've got some weapons. You've got some players. So what the Vikings are doing this offseason is their aspiration should be, let's attack the quarterback position with somebody that we think could, get us back to that, even though they won more than 10 games with Sam, get into that 10-win-ish of maybe even 11-win threshold, and even in a very good division because the NFC North is now stacked, and just have a chance to throw our hat in the ring, get to the playoffs, beyond, and make a move, all right? Because what happens, like the worst spot to be in, we think the worst spot is being fans of a team that has no talent. Now, that sucks. I mean, Sundays are boring. There's no hope. It's listless. But at least when you have a team with no talent, all right, generally, unless you're a complete loser franchise like the Browns, because of that stupid Deshaun, and sorry, Browns fans, I love you, but it is what it is. And who am I to judge? But like at least the Jets have cap space, all right? The deal that they gave to Deshaun Watson, $230 million guaranteed contract, that has really prevented them from doing anything meaningful. So I would much rather stink and have a ton of draft capital, check for the Jets, stink and have a ton of cap space for the Jets, check, than be like the Vikings in, I know this sounds odd, in a fairly undesirable situation with the quarterbacks because there's no home runs out there, but a roster with some big contracts, some expectations, a fan base that thought they were going to keep winning, ownership, think about the GM, he's gone, ownership that thought that they were going to win, and, kind of be in no man's land. Like the Jets aren't in no man's land. They're just wretched. They got to figure out a way to get more talent and stock the cupboards. And I almost think that with a new GM, not if you're in year 5, that's awful. But if you're going into year 2, that's a good spot to be in. All right, let's see. BT, keep grinding and ignore the haters. Also, shout out to my wife, Mercedes. What's up, Mercedes? I don't see a lot of haters here. I mean, there's haters in the world there, and I appreciate the shout out there and the confidence boost. Not that I really need one. J-Rod, are we getting hit with haters today? What am I missing here?
I mean, I'm not seeing too many. I'm not seeing too many haters. I mean, there's a couple haters on the Jets down here.
Why don't you pop the haters up? I'll have a little fun with them.
What's my boy?
Hater. Get a little haterade. See, I'm drinking.
Why every show talk Jets? It's March 3rd.
I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm talking NFL quarterbacks. Is that hard to comprehend? I mean, if you can't hear properly, I don't know what to tell you. You're still talking football, unless you're gambling. Football is a super boring sport. Well, Mikey, what sport do you like, dude? It's the number one sport in not in the world. That's soccer in our country. Now, listen, there's a lot of issues with the NFL. What do you want me to talk about? I'm going to get to the WBC. I talk Yanks and Mets and baseball every day. I got nuggets for you. I talk NBA. What else is out there, buddy? How about this? All right. Who is that, Mikey?
Weaving, underwater basket weaving. That's what he wants you to touch on.
Yeah, well, you got the wrong show for that, buddy. Go find somebody else. Here's what I'm going to give you the power to do. All right. Since you're so smart, since you're such a genius, since you're evidently an aspiring program director or content director, I'm going to give you the latitude, and I'm going to have J-Rod put it up on the screen if you could actually figure something out. And I want you to tell me, all right? I'll read it. I promise. I want you to write out 3 things that you think are more worthy of starting a show today. It is, and I promise you, I will read them. And if they're good, I'll give you props. I don't think they're going to be good because I know what I'm doing. So listen, if it was, I don't know, April 7th that I'm doing this, all right, it's probably a little bit off base. A couple of weeks into the season, March Madness, Final Four just wrapped up. NFL draft around the corner. Hey, what are you talking about, dude? I want to see if you even have the guts to try to put something up there. See, that's what I love. I don't think, now I know I have haters, but I actually get more support than I do hate. I can't really quantify that. Like, you'd have to really read everything that I get and the messages. I'm not going to give you access to it. But I feel as if I am more loved than loathed. I really believe that. I felt it when things ended at the Fan. I still see a lot of comments about what went down and all that stuff. Wishing me and Sal were still on the air. And by the way, that show never should have been taken off the show. It was the best show. It was great. We all know that. And I think that when I read that stuff, I read it because I read it not to get validation necessarily, because the validation is what I've done so far in my career. And this is a new chapter, admittedly. And I'm not making any money yet. I get it. But the haters are fuel. Like, I take that as fuel, because this, you got to remember, guys, this started, take a little side swipe, as we sometimes do here on BT Unleashed. When I told everybody that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, when the baseball dream so painfully died, oh God, did that hurt? J-Rod, you know that hurt, man.
Yeah. Oh.
You knew when I had to officially take off the spikes and hang it up. Even though in my heart I knew, even before I did that it wasn't going to go where I wanted it to go necessarily. Playing for the Yankees, taking over for Donnie Baseball first base. When I told everybody, my best friends and my family, obviously first and foremost, what I was going to do. Even my dad, who you listened to that final show on the Fan, and my dad is the best. He's probably watching right now. And I'm going to get my dad on the show. Maybe do a little old school baseball. Awesome. I've said that a few times. He's got to figure out, how to get into the link here. And J-Rod, J-Rod and Mom will help him with that. My dad's the best. But I remember, because my dad is very practical and very conservative in a lot of things and how he views the world. And my dad, who was a detective for a long time, and also opened his own business after that and did well, and very proud of him, worked his ass off. That's why we went from broken down, dilapidated cars that he would buy for like $1,000 when he saw a sign in a car on the street to actually having a few new cars, right? And that was great, and I'm proud of him. But my dad, just based on how he was raised and the era in which he was raised, was brought up with, you got to have a plan. That's why he's like, I'll take the police test. No, that's not what I'm doing. And I remember I actually got into a fight with him, like a vicious argument when something happened early, and I thought I was going to get my first radio job. And then it was promised to me, and I was like 20 whatever years old, just out of school, promised to me, and then it was taken away. And I won't bore you with the story. I eventually got it. All right. But we kind of exploded each other. His explosion to me was him trying to protect me, which I understand as a dad. And I think if you're of the older generation and you are Irish, not the stereotype, but I'm Irish, so I can say this, the Irish generally have a rougher time expressing themselves. Like, my mom was always, I love you, and soft, and you can do it. You can do whatever you want. My dad was more practical, because my dad is the head of the household and the man and my mom didn't. She worked for a little bit, but when we were young, she was always home, right? Always home during lunch, after school. And he's of the mindset, all right, I'm raising a man here. Eventually, he's got to be able to put food on the table, pay for a home, and do all that stuff. And he didn't really think that this radio thing was necessarily viable. I told you it was, Pops. I told you. Yeah. And so the only one that really, really, truly, and my sister did a little bit as well, was my mom, who said, she had full, unflinching, unwavering conviction in me. So I am even my best buddies were who were on Wall Street making money, and I was making $16,000, and they're starting to make some bank, and they believed in me. But early on, they're like, man, this is going to be hard. Why? You're going to move to Pennsylvania? You're going to move to this tiny town to be on the radio? Yeah, you're damn right I'm going to do it, because I'm going to make it. So any of the hate, any of that stuff, it is fuel, it is oxygen. Bring it on. All right. But I also don't think that I really get more hate than either appreciation or respect or love, because support. I think at the end of the day, I think it's very, very obvious that one of my greatest strengths here is that I'm real, and that I'm not arrogant, and that I'm a really hard worker. And I think that you guys know that, and I'm prepared, and I'm fair, and I'm not lazy. So, yeah. And by the way, I'm still waiting for this nitwit. Did he get something up there or no? Anything popping up? Silence as usual. See, that's the other thing, too. And that's why I'm looking forward to having Michael K. One of the many reasons, Michael engages with the trolls on Twitter. Like, he will actually subtweet stuff, and I don't know why he does it. I mean, the guy's got more money than you could want. He's the voice of the Yankees. He's going to be in Cooperstown someday in the broadcast when he's a Hall of Famer. And when I tell him that, he's like, no chance. I'm like, dude, you've been doing the Yankees for multiple decades, for like 30-something years. You're going to be in the Hall of Fame. You've called championship after championship, and you're going to be there, man. And I guess if you're him, he can't really think that way, so I respect that. But he goes, and he doesn't really go after the trolls, but he will engage with them. And I'm like, why? They are useless people. It is useless energy. Yeah. Generally, trolls are people. I didn't even think I'd get into this. Trolls are people who, 1, have no confidence, 2, are incredibly jealous, 3, have no real plan in life. You know what I mean? That's pretty much what it comes down to.
No, it's tough. And this is what's interesting about, I think, your trolls, maybe in particular, at least the people I see on Twitter, they really love you. Like, that's the funny thing. It's like, these people might genuinely be more interested in your career, your trajectory, your whatever, than the people who are incredibly invested, because it's like, these people are taking time out of their day pretty much most days of the week to say something. And it's like, they must love this guy. They must.
Yeah. I get a lot on the one thing I've noticed here, and it's not even, it's more of a response. Like yesterday, we put that out there. Have I been unfair to the Knicks, right? I don't think I've been unfair to the Knicks at all, because at the start of the season, I said I thought the Knicks would win 54, 55 games, be the first or the second seed in the Eastern Conference, get back to go to the conference finals, and, have a real chance to win a deep series and get to the NBA finals, and then probably lose to OKC. Now, if they play Denver, they could beat them, but OKC is the team, if they get healthy, all that stuff, that's the team you got to worry about the most. And I think one thing that Knicks fans say about me is that I'm too reactive after bad moments. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't even think and by the way, I have no problem absorbing criticism. I've got no problem looking in the mirror and say, man, you fucked that up, dude. That was off. That was bad. And that's why I own stuff, whether it was Zach Wilson, whether it was Lindor only hitting right-handed. I mean, there's been some horrendous takes out of me over the years. Of course, dude. I get that. But I don't even think that I've been unfair to the Knicks. I think I've been as engaged as anybody who does what I do for a living, covering and following the Knicks, because unlike many people, I never stopped watching the Knicks when they were awful. All right. So, the fluctuations in expectation, they are what they are. And when Detroit pushes you around and mops you by 37, and, when Mike Brown is hugging Draymond Green after Draymond was talking smack about Cat, and when Mike Brown was hugging Bickerstaff after another wax job by the Pistons, like, what am I supposed to say? Oh, the Knicks will be fine? Like, what do you guys expect? I don't know what people expect. I know the world's gotten incredibly soft. Like, trust me, I'm well aware of that. But I don't know about me, having been raised on sports radio, Mike and Chris, and falling asleep to the radio and all that stuff every night, as you know. Like, to me, if I heard something that was inauthentic or not relatable or not applicable, I'd be like, this guy sucks. If you know what I'm going to say something that I think is going to sound incredibly egotistical, and I don't mean it that way, but I don't know how else to say it, J-Rod. I really think that if you know sports and you really know what you're talking about, and you're not lazy, and you're not just watching a highlight and getting a little something off TikTok or a little quote off for social media that gets hijacked. If you're really in the trenches and love sport and know sport and follow sport, invest your time in sport, I think you love me, because I think that you know that I do that. Even if you disagree with my assertions, I'll say one thing. I don't know. I don't want to do this for an hour. I'm going to move on to the second. Jeez. I don't know. I really don't know of a person that is, everybody knows I'm a Yankee fan. I don't hide that. But I don't know anybody in our business that is a Yankee fan that is as fair or as knowledgeable about the Mets more than me. I don't know anybody. And I've worked with basically everybody in the business in New York. Everybody. And if I haven't worked with them, I've worked at the same station with them. You know what I mean? So I think that I'm always rooted in transparency and in being fair. By the way, has Mr. Nitwit come up with a couple of bullet points yet, or is he incapable?
My guess would be he's long gone. My guess would be he came in, shot a shot,
Shot an air ball.
Shot an air ball. Shot a little, who was it? De'Aaron Fox the other day off the right side of the basket and then dipped.
He did dip, a little dippage there. Let me get D_Rod. Kay doesn't have thin skin. It's trying to understand why people say the stupid things they do online because they wouldn't say that stuff to your face. I mean, I think that that's a part of it, and not to alienate my guest and my good buddy. I do think that Michael does have a little bit of thin skin. I've talked to him about this. I think he really does care a little bit more than he should about what people say. You know, I really do. And I think that now I think to be obtuse, to not follow to an extent how you're perceived is really dumb. Like I think that and that's why I will dive into comments here and there and do a little digging. True story. So I guess this was about a year, how long ago? Maybe about a year or so ago, right? That's actually a good illumination of how people think and how much inaccuracy is out there, all right? Mm-hmm. Somebody at this, I'm not going to say his name, somebody at WFAN, not on the air, good guy. I don't even know if he's still there. I hope he wasn't let go. He may have been after me. I hope not. He's radio lifer, like one of the production guys who, you got to cut a spot. I know you know this, but I'm going to explain this to everybody. So I do a lot of work with Verizon. All right. So I had a relationship with Verizon for about 5 years on the Fan, which means I would record promos. So he would call me in. Hey, we got the new spot. I would read it, whether it's 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I would read it, and then you would hear it on WFAN. I would also do live reads during the show. And my relationship, I'm very proud to say, has continued with Verizon. I'm doing motivational speaking with them on March 12th. I think Joe Torre is going to be there as well. Big room, about 150 Verizon executives. Spoke there a year ago. Great relationship, right? And the hold on one sec. Hold on. I got the cleaners. Oh God. Oh, dude, come on, not now. Oh God, I'm
not picking it up.
No, but I can hear it. So now it's distracting me right outside the door. All right, I'll try to plow through. I guess it's better to have a cleaner house than they come every couple of weeks. It's not like we're not that rich. They're coming every day, coming every few weeks. Anyway, so this gentleman says to me one day after I record the Verizon spot, he goes, things are starting to change a little bit for you and Sal on Reddit. I go, what the fuck is what's? I don't even know what Reddit is. I mean, I know Serena is like married to the entrepreneur who started Reddit, right? So I mean, I've heard of it. I don't know what it is, and I really didn't care to ever find out what it was. Yeah. So he's like, oh yeah, people are starting to really dig BT and Sal. I won't say the name of the other show because I don't want to be that guy. I guess obviously Sal and I were getting crushed when we first started, probably the Carl Banks stuff and the other things too. But anyway. It was about, they're like, no, that the energy started to shift. Now they're attacking another show, and you guys are starting to get a lot of love. You start to get embraced and start to get received by the Reddit community. I'm like, all right, great. They as long as they listen every day. Yeah, I don't know. So I really did not even know. I've never been, I don't have a Reddit account. I never will.
Really?
No. Why the hell would I do that?
No, it's funny. Do? I was looking you up the other day on it.
But it's nothing that I put out there.
No. Because Reddit, it's more of like I'd say it's like a community space where people discuss. So there'd be like posts where someone would be like, BT is starting a new show, Unleashed, where he's doing da-da-da-da-da-da. And then like people in the comments would kind of just discuss it and be like, hey, good for him, or whatever.
Or so a horrible move by the station getting rid of him, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. I got you. I saw a few of those. All right, so no, I have since leaned into it like, I at least know what it is now. And I knew about the concept, but I didn't really know. Yeah. That's basically what it seems like. So when he told me that, I'm like, all right, good. Well, that must be good. And then I'm like, how do you even find it? So I just Googled I think it was WFAN Reddit.
Yeah.
And I see this whole page come up. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I click on it. And I'm like, they've got all different shows and all different topics and it's mostly clowning on people and hating on people. I mean, nobody espouses any sort of love or affection there. So I'm reading, I'm like, wow, they really were against me and Sal even more than I thought, right? And then, what do you know? And this is really life. when they made the decision to move on from BT and Sal, the tone completely changed on Reddit. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. So that's why you can't take that stuff too serious. And again, I'd much rather be liked than hated. I mean, I've always openly admitted that, but I don't know. It's just that one little comment to me is really funny. But really, I'm still inviting you to come back. But anytime you want to volley back, Mr. Program Director, I'm sure you've got, maybe you've got your own little YouTube channel set up in mommy's basement. You got your 13 followers, and maybe we can do a collaboration at some point. Show you how it's done. I mean, come on, dude. All right. Let me see here. What else is going back? This has popped up a little bit. We got line here. We got 11-01-82. Gino back to the Jets. That would be interesting. Yeah, I know. I mean, listen, if you're just tuning in, this is not a referendum on of hate or trolls. I kind of branched off into one of the topics. I started the show and very Kyler Murray heavy because we are at a very important point of the NFL calendar. Now, by the way, we will find out today, and you need to be, I know you know this, J-Rob, but you need to be pecking away and hunting all of the pertinent Jets accounts out there, NFL accounts, because by 4 p.m. Eastern today, the teams need to make the designation as to whether or not they're going to offer the transition or the franchise. The franchise tag for Breece Hall is 14.1 or 14.3, 14.1, I think. The transition tag is 11.3. Obviously, if you, and they're going to slap the tag on him, he's not going to walk out the door. I saw something from Connor Hughes, who I think is great covering the Jets, and some others before I came on the show. Keep that up there. I'll get to it. That it doesn't look as if even though they're trying, that they will have a deal sold by or settled upon by 4 p.m. today, which means they're going to have to slap one of the tags. Now, if you do the franchise tag, it's $3 million more, but it gives you a window, obviously, I think till July, I've got it written down somewhere, July something, where then you can still work out a long-term deal. But the problem is you've got to carry that number on the cap, and it's applied to the monies, and the Jets are obviously trying to build out their roster. Not that you couldn't do it, but if you do the 14-1, the franchise, no other team can do it. That's it. He's a Jet no matter what. If you do I know that many of you know this, but if you do the transition, it's more appealing because it's $3 million less, but then obviously other teams could come in and try to, offer contracts, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So that's more of a direct way, the franchise tag, to make sure Breece doesn't leave the building, which he's not. I always thought that, it's funny, based on what it looks like is going to happen, that's really the opposite of what I basically thought was going to happen. I thought, one, they would find a way to find common ground, $10, $11 million, long-term deal, 30-something guaranteed, very, very team-friendly, Breece happy, solidify the bag, all good, and he should because he's very good and he's very young. He's going to be paid like a top 5, top 6 running back. The market's changing a bit, but I don't think that's going to happen, and I thought it was going to be either number 1, long-term deal. Number 2, transition tag. Number 3, franchise. I'm going to actually flip that where I think as of where I sit now, just about whatever it is, I don't know, a couple hours away from the deadline, I think it's probably more probable that it would be the franchise tag, then the transition, then the long-term deal. So we'll see. All right, let's get to this here. Mike Iano. What's up, Mike? Thank you for that, Mike. Very, very nice. Thank you, dude. Jets should trade for yeah, maybe. He lives and breathes football. Has it mentally, good athleticism, 6'3", 25 years old, makes $5 million a year, use the cap space and picks to build the team. Yeah, I mean, thank you for that again. Thanks for checking in, dude. There's a lot of targets out there, not just for the Jets, for a lot of teams. I mean, I started this by throwing the Falcons in there, the Vikings, the Jets, the Dolphins, all tenuous quarterback situations, varying degrees of where they are. Vikings are trying to win right away. Jets are just trying to elevate the floor. Dolphins are, kind of in between. Falcons, based on their talent, they got a lot of talent, are somewhere in between. And they don't love Penix. Obviously, Cousins didn't work out. So there's, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. There's 9 names that I've given you. And some are free agents, some are trades. Willis, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Mariota, Tua, Geno, Davis Mills, Mac Jones, and then Tanner McGee. And I would love Tanner McGee, and then maybe Tyrod as the backup, and then a quarterback in the draft. These are all the things that they've got to do, and they're not alone, because if you don't have a quarterback, you are just perpetually hunting one down because you can't win without one. So it's funny, anytime, and I think Evan was, I don't want to misrepresent Ev. I think Evan was for Kyler Murray. I think, maybe. Either way, I was not. All right. And because I was just thinking of the concept of Kyler Murray, he's never going to win you a Super Bowl. Now, he will elevate the floor, and I'm good with that. But the other thing about Kyler Murray is he's just not all in on football. That's the scout report. Listen, I'm not in his mansion or his beautiful condo when he gets home from the facility. I don't know what time he parks his car and walks into the facility to scour film. But everything emanating out of Arizona is that he is kind of one of these Hollywood quarterbacks who's half in. He's not a real leader. And then you mix in the fact that, and now the Jets can absorb this, as I chronicled before, very few teams can, but he's got a $50 million price tag this year, and he's got 2 more years, a lot more guaranteed money. And, I gave you the numbers, and that's not good. I can live with that if you're a baller and you're all in and the situation just didn't work out. If I know you're a film head and you're getting in there and you're a guy who's going to galvanize the team in the weight room, on the practice field, in the classroom, OTAs and stuff. And maybe Kyler Murray would take a very different approach with a new team. I mean, he better, otherwise he could be out of the league soon. But I'm of a firm belief, I'm a staunch believer in this, that your trajectory can change. Certainly, I'm talking primarily from the quarterback position. Your trajectory can radically change, whether it was, who's a good name to give you? I'm going to try to give you an old one here. Rich Gannon, all right? Rich Gannon. I just want to write down the name, Rich. I don't want to forget it. Your trajectory can change if you are a quarterback who is drafted to a bad spot, right? And poor coaching or multiple coaches and multiple GMs and different systems, like maybe even if the head coach stays, but the first year you've got one system and then the OC gets whacked and a new guy comes in and he's got different schemes. And you try to, learn that after you finally figured out the first one. Like, that swallows up a lot of talented players. It just does. All right. So that is the realness, and that is the reality of being an NFL quarterback. But at the very least, like, if you don't have a couple of non-negotiable traits for me, I just can't have you in my building unless there are a ton of vets that you trust and a coach that has some winning equity and stable ownership, and a GM who's been around the block for a little bit, knows what he's doing. Like, if Kyler Murray's not going to get his act together and become a diligent pro, and if he hasn't by the age of 28, he's probably not going to do it anytime soon, then why would I trust Aaron Glenn, who I like and I think could be, and I think he's a leader of men, but he's got to win. I mean, he was awful last year, as was the team. And Muji, who's good, but they're all young, and Woody's a clown. Ownership is horrendous. Like, is that the best situation? No, I think probably the best situation is the Vikings for somebody like Kyler Murray, which is why the odds-on favorite, the betting odds that were just released, the Vikings are the number 1 favorite to get him, and the Jets are number 2, and there's a few other teams out there. So, I don't know. Just to finish that Rich Gannon thought. Rich Gannon, hey, J-Rod, do me a favor, bud.
Yeah, what's up?
Type up Rich Gannon stats. All right, Rizzo. You ever hear of Rich Gannon? It's a long time ago. If you didn't, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. You ever hear Rich?
Maybe the name, but
okay, it's all good. He's not even really doing TV anymore, so I'm not surprised you don't know him. It's all good. Rich Gannon was a quarterback who can run, who could throw, and who bounced around early. And I just want you to pull up the names or the teams that he played. I know he was on the Raiders at the end, obviously, and that's going to lead to my point.
All right, so Vikings,
Chiefs, Vikings, right?
Yep.
Keep going. Was that it?
Chiefs, Washington, Vikings, Washington, Chiefs, Oakland.
Yeah, when they were still in Oakland. Okay, how many years? Take out the Raiders in that equation, right? How many years for those other 3 teams you mentioned? How many years did that encompass? 8, 9, 10, something like that? Played a long time.
10.
Yeah, okay. 10 years. Now, this is also cherry picking an example to the contrary, because there's a lot of examples that aren't as rewarding as Rich Gannon. 10 years, a very transient, very nomadic NFL quarterback existence. Bouncing around, couldn't stick, a little start here, a little backup there, trying to grind. Like, if you look at that, it's not like he started all those years. He really was a backup in a lot of those situations. He goes to the Raiders, and I believe in 19, hold on, no. I believe Rich Gannon in 2002 was the league MVP. Can you verify that for me? And then give me his stats in 02 with the then Oakland Raiders. I know he won the MVP. I thought it was 02, and I'm pretty sure he was like 37 or 38 years old. As you look for that, he was definitely old.
Pulling it up. Let's see. I don't have his age. Okay, well, let's see. He was born in 1965, so in 2002, he would have been, what is that? 37?
75, 85, 95, 37. Like I said, 37, 38, right? And when did he win the MVP? Was it 02? I want to make sure that I'm on there. The Jets lost to them in the playoffs, and I'm pretty sure it was 02. Either way, he won by the way, just move. The best way to do this, ProReference.com. Not now. It's all good. I'm in the neighborhood enough. Go to ProReference.com. You'll see the age. You'll see the team. And if you go to the far right, it'll have awards like, MVP, Pro Bowl, and then anything in bold, led the league, all that stuff. So as I finish my thought, if you could find it, let me just finish my thought. Rich Gannon, while he bounced around, and again, very transient, couldn't stick. No traction. The reason why Rich Gannon was able to pop and win the MVP Raiders at that point. Porter was there. They had a good run game. They had a good defense, and they lost in the Super Bowl, right? So there's a reason why somebody like Rich Gannon was doing TV for CBS for a long time, because he was a film guy. He was in the trenches. His intellect was through the roof. There's a reason why Rich Gannon kept getting chances around the NFL. And that seems to be counter to what Kyler Murray is. Doesn't seem like he loves watching film. If it doesn't work out wherever he goes next, because he's still pretty young, he'll get one more shot. But he's not. If this doesn't pick up soon, he's not going to be playing football at the age of 37 like Rich was, and he's certainly not going to win the MVP at the age of 37 or 38 like Rich Gannon did. I can promise you that.
So 2002 MVP, 67% completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, 4,700 yards,
and also a runner. Rich Gannon could beat you with his wheels too. Rich was a very good athlete. Yeah. So ideally, you try to find somebody like that. Now, I'll give you an example of somebody who wasn't quite as talented, but had a kind of similar trajectory. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was drafted out of Harvard and started in camp with the Bengals, if I recollect. Yeah, I think it was the Bengals, right? And then obviously the Bills wound up giving him some money, didn't work out, bounced around a little bit, and wound up coming to the Jets. And even though the Jets didn't make the playoffs that year in 2015 with Todd Bowles, he broke Vinny's touchdown records, for a season. And he was a really good player because he was smart and because he loved film. And there's a reason why he's on Prime now doing TV commentary, talking about the NFL, because he is a student of the game. Kyler Murray doesn't seem to be that. Incredibly problematic. Now, say, all right, well, if you don't want to trade for Kyler Murray, and the way that I would, if you missed it, very brief reset, because I want to get to Kirk Cousins as well for some of these other teams, the way that you do that is you entice the Cardinals to trade him by giving you a draft pick. Yo, Arizona. Yeah, it's Moji. What's going on, man? Hey, we'll take Kyler off your hands. Yeah, well, $50 million next year? We could absorb it. We got plenty of money. We're good. We need a third-round pick to make it happen. You've got to give us a decent draft pick. Otherwise, we're not interested. Hey, we can't give you a draft pick. Click. All right, go figure out your finances yourself. Have fun. You're not going to do it. Like, you're going to have to release him. And then you're going to have to spread the cap over a couple of years. And by the way, I do think he's going to be released. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him, but only because the Jets have all that money. It's at least interesting enough to give the Cardinals something to think about. And to me, you think about like the framework of a deal, the art of a deal, getting people to think, and then eventually do something that they might not be inclined to do. You've just got to be ultra creative. And the easy thing is to sit around and wait for somebody to get cut. I mean, anybody could do that. I could do that. All right, you got cut. All right, pick them up. Get veteran minimum. All right, sure. That's easy. Put them in there. Well, we got a quarterback. But I think the more proactive, more compelling way to attack any of these moves is to be a forward thinker. And I wonder if Moody or anybody else is thinking about that. Now, I'm going to give you another name. And every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, God. Because it just represents blah. All right? It's Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins, to me, would be on the cheap pretty, and I hate to say it because I don't want to watch Kirk Cousins play football this year. To me, he would be a perfect get for the Jets. Now, maybe not more than Tanner McGee because there's upside and he's cheap, all right? But if you get Tanner McGee and he can't play, even though he looks like he could play with the Eagles, but then again, that's the Eagles, and we're talking about the Jets, or trade for Mac Jones, which I'd also be very amenable to. Geno doesn't do it for me. Tua doesn't do it. Tua in cold weather. Tua with that weak pop gun arm. No, thank you. Mariota, he's going to be on the table because he's going to be cheap and he's a good veteran like Kirk Cousins. But at least the sell job with Kirk Cousins would be this. From a Jets point of view, not for the Vikings, maybe, but I think the Miami Dolphins are thinking more bold. Maybe for the Browns to help Shedeur Sanders out a little bit. But really for the Jets is because at the bare minimum, that Kirk Cousins is going to raise the floor. And, is he going to raise it by 7 or 8 wins? No. Are the Jets going to be a playoff team? No. I mean, unless they had this ridiculous all-time draft and everybody popped whatever. And like everything they do in free agency is magic. And who knows? But the likelihood of that happening, not very high. But what Kirk Cousins does, and they are in dire need of this. They sorely need this. They just need an adult to come into the building, understand the playbook, which he'll do in a minute, be able to express that to the teammates. See, to his teammates, it's one thing to have really good coaching, but the most effective leadership comes from within. That's why a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I mentioned before, proved to be a very viable quarterback around the NFL and garnered respect everywhere he went. Because number one, he knew the playbook inside and out, and the guys knew that. And, he wasn't afraid to put his pads down and take a hit and, first down, get absolutely crushed by a linebacker or a safety coming up in the box. And that resonates with guys, all right? It does. There's an energy there. Now, Kirk has a different energy. He's not going to run around like that. Can't move at all, really. And in a lot of ways, he's more prototypical for Frank Reich, who wants that big-bodied pocket passer. So there's a fit scheme-wise. And the moment, especially if the Jets were to draft like Mekhi Lemon 16 or another receiver 16, go defense at 2 or even defense, say if they trade out of the 2 spot, they're going defense with that first pick no matter what. Book it. That's done. And then, 16, they could go receiver. If you have Kirk Cousins on the practice field daily, right, with Garrett Wilson, who's a pro's pro anyway. I mean, think about what he's done with the mess of quarterback play that he's been subjected to. What a shame. I mean, could you get the guy a quarterback? Jeez, what would his numbers be if he actually had somebody who could throw the ball, right? But if you have a veteran, a stable force like Kirk, and it's Garrett, and it's Breece Hall, who will definitely be back, and it's a young rookie drafted inside the top 20, and it's, Mitchell, who they brought in, there's ways to look at this and say, okay, now we can at least get a little momentum and at least get the wheels turning a little bit to go from a laughing stock and an absolute joke, all right, to at least a representative team and a functional locker room and a building that is healthier and more energized and more buttoned up and more intelligent and all those things. So as much, again, I'm not going to be excited like I was when the Jets got Rodgers. I mean, that was different. I mean, that was euphoria, even though it didn't work out. I would understand and I would accept Kirk Cousins. And, I'd be excited about Willis. Murray, only if you get some trade value back where you get him for a couple of mil on the veteran cheap, right? Cousins, I just explained. Mariota's in play. Want no part of Tua. Not really down with a Geno reunion. Davis Mills, okay, kind of interested. Mac Jones, I would trade for him depending upon what the Niners want back. And I've already touched on Tanner McGee. Armand is amazing. What's up, Armand? Would you trade a second-round pick for Tanner McGee? No way. I'm not giving up a second-round pick. Zach Rosenblatt put out an article that a quarterback like McGee that the Jets would have to trade for will cost a premium pick. I'm not giving up a second-round pick. Why would you do that? No, you don't do that. I mean, you want to tell me it becomes a conditional second-round pick that starts as you probably don't get him as a 4th rounder, so it might have to be a 3rd. And I don't think the Jets have a 3rd rounder this year, so they'd have to tap into some other stuff. And Muji can make that happen. I'm not worried about that. Like, logistically and the dynamics of making that happen, he'll figure it out. Would I give up a 3rd that becomes a 2 with performance or playing time? Yeah, I'd be open to that. Sure. There's intrigue with Tanner McGee. But like just to give up the top of the second round pick with no built-in, benchmarks, or no way. I'm not doing that. Now, I'm not taking a shot at Zach's reporting. I'm just saying I wouldn't do it. No. And if other teams are willing to do that, well, then good for them. There's also a part of me that wants to say, I'm going to stop short of saying this, but wants to kind of say, man, if the Jets value him enough where they would do that, maybe I've got to dial back the resistance there. That just seems inordinately high for somebody who hasn't done a whole lot. Second round pick, man. Come on. All right. Let me get Smith Jones, 6898. All right. Tennessee Titans fan here. What about another trade, bringing in Will Levis for some competition at quarterback? His days in Tennessee are over. All right. Let me ask you this. I know that they're over. He was a very appealing prospect. I watched him at Kentucky a few times. He's got some energy. He's always got a little bit of I don't know. He's got a little Jackson Dart there. I don't know. It's just the way he looks or the way he presents himself. But I know he's got a big arm. I know he's a pretty good athlete. Didn't work. Went sideways. Yeah, I mean, I guess. But I've got to have something more stable. Like I can't have Will Levis and Tyrod Taylor and then some other early-ish, draft dart kind of hit the board and say, all right, let's make that our quarterback room, because where are you really going from that? If you were to do you've got to structure this in a way that makes sense, where if you draft somebody, he's getting reps. Like you got to at least look at that. And if you were to trade for Will Levis and then draft somebody and then have somebody like Tyrod Taylor, you have to have a veteran there, because you can't have three kids or three. Levis wasn't done a damn thing in the NFL. I know he started a lot, but I saw him in person. I did a trip to the Jets Titans, and the Jets won that game. It was actually pretty cool. And you just can't have like Levis and I don't know, Brady Cook, and then drafting somebody. That's not going to work out. J-Rod, are you into? I think that I know the answer already here. Everybody, BT Unleashed fam, are you into the WBC at all?
WBC? No.
Not one bit.
No, I mean, I can't. I mean, I can tell you, I'm definitely going to be watching this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't I be? I got some homework to do. I got some research. So I'm gonna be locked in. Yeah.
Have you ever watched it before?
No, I don't believe. I mean,
not one pitch.
With my brother potentially back in the day.
Yeah, your brother played baseball, right?
Yeah.
He played in high school?
JV in high school, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Junior and senior year.
I got you. Oh, JV is a senior? That's a rough look right there.
Maybe.
He played though.
I'm trying to think.
I got you. So I'm excited for it. I'm not going over the top nuts here. I'm excited for it. I was messing around with the potential lineup here. So it's starting up, obviously. I think it starts tomorrow. Some teams play tomorrow. I know we play Brazil Friday night at 8, and that's going to be on Fox. It's a national game. And obviously, if you're a Yankee fan, Judge, the captain. I saw the video yesterday, Judge talking to the team. Pretty cool. I've got a little lineup for you here. Listen, I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be some variation of this, you would imagine. How about we got Witt playing short, batting first, Schwarber batting second, playing DH, Aaron Judge in the 3 spot playing right field, Bryce Harper at first, batting fourth, Cal Raleigh, you can even flip that if you want to do that. Cal Raleigh behind the plate, batting 5. You got Roman Anthony, who's a stud, left field, batting 6, Bregman in the 7-hole playing third, Pete Crow Armstrong center field, batting 8, and then Bryce Terang second base, batting 9th. Now, the only thing, and I get it, I do, this is not me knocking them, it's not pushback, but this is kind of one of the issues with the WBC, and we should handle Brazil fairly easily. I'm hoping for it all. I want to see us win this, man. Usually, I kind of jump in just to watch all the great players. I love watch. I said this yesterday. I'm not going to go much into it, but I love watching the DR. I love watching Puerto Rico. I love watching Japan. All the Japanese players seem to have the same approach, like very similar stances. And, they almost look like they're a lot of the same. I don't know. It's like they're a carbon copy of each other. The problem, though, now we got Skeens, you got Logan Webb, you got Ryan Yarborough, and you got Skubal, but Skubal's only making the one start. And that's going to be early. I don't know if he's pitching against Brazil, but like United States advances, he's checking out. He's going back down to Lakeland to get with the Tigers, which I get. I understand that. He's got a lot of money coming his way. He won his arbitration, 30-something million. How offensive was that? He was asking for 32, and the Tigers said, no, we'll give you 19 for Tarik Skubal. I mean, how dumb are you? If anything, you got to bite the bullet. You got to give him a lot more than that to at least give yourself a chance and they're not going to resign him. He's going to be with the Dodgers, the Yankees, or the Mets, or the Phillies. I think the Phillies will make a big move as well. And Toronto, maybe. Like, those are the 5 teams. But he's going to leave Detroit. And now you'd have to think he's definitely going to leave, because the way these arbitration cases go, you don't really fixate on what you do well. As crazy as this sounds, you sit down, you got the arbiter, you got Skubal, you got his rep, you got the Tigers, blah, blah, blah. And then the arbiter's sitting there and you're hearing both sides. We deserve this. We want this. He's done this. Of course. Come on. Then you got the Tigers. The Tigers actually in their and it's unfortunate. And people hate arbitration for this reason. You are at a table, almost like a deposition. You're at a table and you're sitting there and you're listening to your employer telling the arbiter and you, by extension, why you don't deserve the money you're asking for because of your deficiencies. What deficiencies could they possibly illuminate with Tarik Skubal? Can somebody tell me what they are? What, you're too young? You haven't proven it yet? You got an injury history. He's healthy as a horse, knock on wood. He's a stud, back-to-back Cy Youngs, one of the most when you watch Tarik Skubal pitch, and I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment here, but I know my baseball history. I mean, is it really that different? And I don't mean the presentation or the stature or the body type or the windup. I'm talking about the results. When you watch Skubal pitch, right, is it really that different than watching Randy Johnson pitch or Pedro pitch? Is it? Or young Clayton Kershaw, who's also on Team USA, which is very cool. The answer is no. Or a young Clemens, or a young Gooden. I didn't see Seaver pitch, but I mean, any luminary, Bob Gibson, Tom Seaver, Walter Johnson, Cy Young, like what this dude is doing, what he's cooking up that. So to sit in a room like that would infuriate me to the point where, and I understand it's the process, and I understand, pre-arb and eligible for this, and here you go. All right, eligible for free agency this year. Like, I know how it works, and that's the way it was collectively bargained. And until it changes, you got to play by the rules. But there are certain exceptions, man. Like, the Tigers really should have came in and said, all right, you want 32? Start at 25. And start at 25. At least you're not pissing him off. Because I don't know if he loves Detroit. I don't know. I don't know how he views their team long term. They did a couple of little things during the offseason, but it's not like they went out and just, manned up and said, all right, they're to themselves. All right, there's a good chance that, if we don't get to a World Series, or at least get to the American League Championship Series, he's going to start processing his legacy. All right. Because he's going to get paid. What's he going to get? 45, 50 a year, 400 million. What's he going to get? Right. I know Cohen's coming. I'd like to say that Hal's coming. I don't really think he is. I know the Dodgers are coming with that. I believe the Phillies would come with that. So he's at a point now where, all right, he won it. So he's making $30 million this year, and he's made decent money up until this point. But now he's got to start looking ahead and saying, all right, where am I going to win? Because that is now a byproduct of all the conversations. And it's sad. I didn't hear the word legacy once in my lifetime growing up. And I don't even really know the origin of it, quite frankly. Like, I wasn't walking around as a kid, in the street or in the schoolyard. Hey, if Parcells doesn't win another one, no, he can't be considered an all-time great. Just didn't think that way. I didn't even think my all-time favorite player is Don Mattingly in any sport, all time by a mile. Donnie baseball forever. I wasn't watching him in '84 with the batting title, and '85 with the MVP. In '86, when he finished second to Clemens and the MVP, got hosed, and all the things he did in his 5 or 6 year window, where he was basically a modern Stan Musial, I was watching him in awe. I wasn't watching him saying, "Oh God, if Donnie doesn't get to the play," there was no wild card back then until when he finally made it in '95 and hit 417 against Seattle. I wasn't sitting there once. It never once permeated my thought or my conversations. God, if Donnie doesn't get to the playoffs here, or if Donnie doesn't win a World Series, he can never be looked at before he got hurt as a Mantle or a Gehrig or a Ruth or a DiMaggio or a Yogi or any of those other great luminaries. I just didn't look at it that way. I didn't. And it's become very lazy is what it's become. I don't know where it started. I've got a few guesses. I definitely think the LeBron MJ thing is huge. There's no question about that. Now, it's also the easiest conversation to have. MJ by a mile. Next topic. I think not maybe. I also think it's funny. We hit a little bit of golf yesterday, and I told you you're going to get a lot of good golf coverage. I don't mean the fairly benign week-to-week tournaments. I'm talking about Masters time, Open Championship, U.S. Open, Ryder Cup. You're getting it on this channel. I love golf. I play golf. I stink, but I know golf, and I consume golf. I love golf, right? So you're definitely going to get that. And I remember when Tiger was just obliterating the record book, you started getting, maybe it was even before LeBron. Now that I think about it, and it's not LeBron, even though I shade LeBron here and there for different reasons. It's not LeBron's fault that he didn't start the GOAT conversation. I don't know who the hell started it, but now that I trace back, I mean, think about when Tiger was just reducing, Augusta and all these various venues across the world, just knocking them to its knees and just, shooting minus 15 and obliterating a field that had David Duval and obviously Mickelson and Vijay Singh and Jimmy Furyk and all these great golfers back then. Maybe the origin was Jack and Tiger Woods, because we weren't talking about Michael and LeBron back in the late 90s because LeBron was still in high school in the late 90s. So maybe that's what it is, but that's kind of become part of it as well. And I don't know to what extent, I don't know to what degree these athletes really factor in their ability to eventually win a championship. I don't know, but I could promise you this, that it's more than it ever was. You know what I mean, J-Rod? So you're a lot younger than me, and
Yes,
your
sir.
world really has never been without these legacies and these GOAT conversations. That's all you kind of know, right?
I mean, at least for me, yeah, like the whole sports world thing, it's less surrounded by the actual moments themselves and more about like the hypotheticals of, will this player do this? Will they reach this peak, rather than really appreciating, okay, what are they doing now and how does that reflect upon other people, rather than this comparison of what they haven't done compared to what people in the past have done.
Yeah.
Also, real quick,
yeah,
my brother just freaked out at me on the phone. He was on varsity.
All right, good.
He was on varsity.
There you go. As a senior.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he was on JV as a sophomore, junior, senior. He was on varsity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how do you not know that? Come on, Jay. You got to represent your brother. Come on, man.
I know.
I mean, listen. Listen. Baseball's hard. I mean, if anybody knows that, it's me. Baseball is hard to play. Hard to be great at baseball. It's very hard to be consistent at baseball. But at the risk of sounding like that guy, I mean, I don't even know if you're allowed on JV as a senior. And if you are a senior and you're on JV, that's a rough look, man. Yeah. I mean, it's probably time to pack it up and do something. Join the band, go have some fun, enjoy senior week, go and visit colleges, go on spring break. Did you go on spring break when you were in high school? Not in high school.
No,
yet,
right? COVID. Yeah, no, my senior year, I did nothing. I didn't do any. I mean,
so your senior year, you learned virtually the entire year?
Yeah. And so what was crazy is for my school, I don't know if the other grades did this. My seniors, all our classes were asynchronous. We didn't even do Zoom learning. We did like all asynchronous classes. So they would like send you for the week what like quizzes or what assignments you had to do for the week. You just had to finish it by the end of the week, and that was it.
What?
You didn't speak to a teacher once. You didn't speak to another student. You literally filled out assignments, sent them in, done.
Oh, that is depressing. That's horrible, man. Did you have a senior prom?
No.
Holy shit!
I didn't even have a graduation. We drove through. We drove through in a car. I stood on and it was a little fun looking back on it, just because it was different. But yeah, my mom, my dad, my brother, maybe my dog. We were in the car. We drove up to the stage. I got out. I probably had like my sneakers on or whatever.
Yeah.
Had like the gown on. Took the picture. Got back in the car. Left.
That is, I know you made the most of it, man. Nothing you could do, but that is utterly depressing. So we do have something in common here, J-Rod, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't go to your prom because you didn't have one because COVID wiped it out. I didn't go to my prom because I was banned from my prom.
What'd you do?
Yeah, it's a story for another day. You're gonna have to save that. Save that one.
I mean, I'm very curious.
That's true. Now I went to some other proms because the Catholic school girls, like I got asked to go to a few of their proms.
Sure.
I was not allowed to go to my prom.
Oh man, that's
yeah,
insane.
whatever, man. I went to the after parties. Who cares?
Yeah. Wait, I'm seeing some. I'm seeing that. Yeah, breaking news. Brees Hall got a franchise tag.
Franchise. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. Well, you couldn't wait to do that. Let me hear that again. Let's go.
It's not a great sound. That's the thing.
You can't really hear it, dude.
That's a.
Now we go. Let me hear that one. Give me both. Boom, boom, back to back.
Ready? Here's the first. It's like a weak Stone Cold.
It's hard. That's it. 100%. All right, there you go. Good. All right, so Brees gets the franchise, not the transition. And that's what I surmised. I just hit that 10 minutes ago. And now they'll have until July to figure this out. So it's $14.1 million, but they're going to have to carry that on the books for the cap until they resolve it. So, all right, extend the window. No doubt, never doubt Brees would be back. He is good for Brees and good for the Jets. All right, so let me investigate something else here. So now, how did you go and visit colleges?
So yeah, that was what was strange. Is it was such a weird period where, like, you know, because I still went to Syracuse on time. We still had a couple in-person classes when I was there later 2020.
Okay.
And then I visited colleges that time right before COVID in that like September to November period of 2019. So that was kind of when I, visited colleges then, whatever, February, March. That March, April, May, June, July came along. But then in August, we were kind of, it was a little better, went back to school.
Let me ask you this. So I know how you got the work, and you could do it all in one day and then just chill, or you could just, spread it out, which is probably what you did. But what did you do every day? So you're obviously at your parents' home. Did you ever see a friend?
Oh, yeah. So I'm like a small town kid. So it's like, it really, it wasn't.
They were like, screw COVID, we're doing whatever we want.
Exactly. Good. Like me and my boys kind of just chilled. Like, obviously, I think, for that first week, I think my friend might have been the first dude in America who had COVID. It was like first week. Yeah, it was like that first week of March, and this dude was out.
Did you ever get it?
Yeah. Couple times, but never symptomatic. So,
yeah, me too, basically. Go ahead. Did you have something else, guys? Because I wanted to.
No, what we would do all day, play video games, hang out, have like a bonfire or whatever outside.
Oh, okay.
See, nice. We were still like, not partying per se.
No, I
6 or 7
understood.
People, but
yeah,
you still had a good time, definitely.
A little too young to party, even though back in my day we partied
like,
very, very, very early. I joke around. We talk about golf. The first time I was on a golf course was when we jumped the fence and had a beer on the green.
Oh my gosh!
True story. Yeah, man. I'm not going to tell you how old I was. We were young. I remember going through that and obviously, going through it. My kids were young, but they weren't in full blown school yet.
Sure.
They were young. So a little bit easier. And in a lot of ways, I don't want this to sound the wrong way. I almost embraced it in a way because, I was home. So I'm doing the show from home. Me and Tiki never stopped doing our show. It was a TV component. So we had the cameras in here. We were on CBS Sports Network, and there was just nothing to talk about, right? And it was brutal. But we figured it out because me and Tiki were very tight, and we talked about the world a lot and tried to find some interesting, like, evergreen stuff, like a lot of LeBron and, Kobe and Shaq and Tiger and stuff like that. But I remember what we did. We moved into our home in December of 2018. So this was obviously 2020. And let's see. So that would have been my little guy he had just turned 5 and my daughter was still 3. So I remember like that first week. This is a true story. On our first floor toward the back, we've got a pretty good sized playroom, right? And like my wife did a great job. She, like, even before COVID, she put up like, the alphabet, like the letters and like some basic mathematical stuff and like the days of the week, the months of the year. And then, of course, then Daddy took over and went a little next level because Tiki and I were on in the afternoon. We were doing the afternoon show across the country, right? So my mornings were free and I would go, all right, time for class, kiddos, let's go. And we had their little desks in there. And I don't really know if they were understanding it very much, but I'm doing like antonyms and homonyms and synonyms and like I'm going deep dive, man. And I'm doing I remember I found like 5 and 6 syllable words. Actually, this is another quick aside. This is how I taught my my kids about words and how to spell, how to sound it out. I would give them, circumstantial. All right, so something like circumstantial 4. I would say, all right, how many syllables in circumstantial? Before I'd ask them to spell it, I'd say, how many syllables? And the little voices, and we would clap it out, circumstantial, you know? And that's kind of, so I'm doing all this teaching, and then I like get the map because I love geography. And I'm hitting the states, and then I'm trying to get, North America, South America, Asia, Africa, Antarctica, Australia. Like I'm doing the continent, I'm doing everything. And I'm like, this is phenomenal. I'm even doing painting with them, right? Dude, after 1 week, I had literally nothing else to teach. I don't know at that point when COVID's first hitting, you don't know how long you're going to be isolated. You're gonna, and they were still young, and we didn't really know anybody in town yet. So, and it was still chilly out. It was like March. So it was a good time to really, as a family, just really everyday movies and games. And they were playing doctor. I would be the patient. They'd get dressed up in their doctor's gear. After a week, I'm like, I'm out of freaking. I got nothing else. I've just told you everything that I know in the world. I got nothing else to do. We got to figure this shit out here, man.
That's too funny, man.
You know what's crazy? I know you don't know this. So the Big East tournament, you can look this up. Not now. The video is as ominous and as jarring, and my real-time feel when this was going on was unlike anything that I ever felt, right? So think about, just give me a full screen for a second.
Yeah.
So say if WFAN was here and the Garden was here, right? So this is the fan. I would park my car at WFAN, and then I would jump on the 1 or the 9 train, and I would just take it to the Garden when I had St. John's games. And then obviously after the game, I would get back on the train, take it 3-4 stops, walk out, get my car, drive home to New Jersey, right? So I take the train. Now, I remember... Now things are starting. That was after Rudy Gobert touched the microphones. I know you know that, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, he was mocking it. And everybody's like, what is this COVID nonsense? And it really, anyway, for some stupid reason, that's not St. John's fault. The Big East. You want to talk about a void of leadership. I could not believe that they did this. We have a game and they're playing, I think they were playing Creighton, right? Little tidbit. St. John's was the last team to play. The last team to play in the entire country. Really? So me and Mink get there early, and the way and I remember leaving, and my wife's like, they're really going to play? And I'm like, yeah, they're going to play. And I'm just, I'm a minimalist in terms of worry. I'm like, we're fine, we're good. Well, yeah, of course we're going to play, right? So they won the day before, and I'm thinking maybe we'll make a run, maybe we'll make the tournament. So me and Mink get there early, and we get advised that I think each school was given 150 tickets, I think, for parents and the band, something like that. So me and Mink are courtside at the Big East tournament. And I remember before the game, at the Big East, it's a massive operation, as you can imagine. TVs, media guides, everything, right? Press conference set up. And I'm walking to get some notes for the St. John's. I think it was Creighton, St. John's Creighton. And I'm watching, I guess ESPN was on, and I see now flashing on the screen. The remainder of the ACC tournament canceled. Remainder of the SEC tournament canceled. Big 10 canceled. Big 12 canceled. I'm like, what? I'm like, why are we like? All right, now it's a little weird. And I go out and I sit down. This is probably about 25, 30 minutes before the game. And I look up in the stands, and this is guaranteed a picture that you could find on Google.
Yeah.
The St. John's mascot is basically up in the upper deck, sitting by himself in full regalia.
Yep. It was
mascot.
The first thing you look up, St. John's mascot, and then COVID's the first word that comes up.
And I remember looking up at that, right? I'm like, wow, this is, and I'm going to use the word ominous again. This is really ominous.
Can I throw that picture up?
I'd love to see it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Throw it up there, bro. You get it up there. It's all good. And I remember looking around, and it's just this 20,000 seat venue. You know, I love the Garden. It's massive, cavernous. Now that I think of it, I'm not even sure if the band was there. It may have just been parents and immediate family of the players who were playing that game. And we start the pregame show, and Mink goes, All right, and it's a sponsored element, and it's the keys to the game. All right, coming up now, BT is me. BT with his, and he always does this with his hand. BT with his keys to the game, right? I'm like, all right, Mink. And I was in such a bad mood, and I said something like, listen, I just crushed the conference. I'm like, you want the keys to the game? Sure. I don't even know why we're here. And I just eviscerated. Yeah. Like, it was not even, I said, key number 1, don't get hurt. Key number 2, score more points. It was literally, I just want to get out of here, right? They play the first half. And St. John, every other game in the country
is canceled.
Mountain West, WAC, MAC, NEC, Sun Belt, everything canceled. For some idiotic reason, the Big East is still playing. And I love the Big East, but it was so dumb, right? And we go to halftime. St. John's is winning. So I joke around. St. John's won the national championship that year because they were the last team with a lead, right? So I go to get a cup of coffee or just to see what the hell's going on. And I go back, and it's like the commissioner and other people, and they're all converged. They're like, the game's can't. So they actually played the first half of the game. By the way, did you find the picture? Can you get it up there yet or no? Yeah. Look, now it's not really, it's okay.
Not very high quality, but
it's okay though. Just a depressing shot. And I remember walking, and I still wasn't nervous or afraid. I was actually pissed. I'm like, St. John's was playing well, but I knew you had to cancel the rest of it. So anyway, long story short, now I got to get on the train to go to get my car to get home. And I'm walking down the stairs to go on the one train and there was one person that I passed. Nobody was on the trains. It was a ghost town, dude, which was even more scary.
Wow.
The person that I passed, older woman, whatever, she went like this. Like, she actually just put me on the full screen. As I'm walking up there, I smile at her. I'm trying to be nice and cordial to everybody, especially the elderly and women, whatever. As I walk by, she goes like she just moves away from me. I'm like, wow, man, this is. So I get home, and now it's full blown, like things are going on. But I'm still not worried. That was maybe a Thursday, if I recollect. I think it was a Thursday. So the next day, I wake up. I'm like, all right, and I'm going I'm leaving the house, and my wife goes, "Where you going?" I go, "I'm going to work out." I've since built out my basement where I work out in my basement, but I belong to a gym like 2 miles from home. I'm going to work out. I'm going, which I did at that point probably 3 times a week, maybe 4. She's like, "You're not going to work out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." She's like, "You're not going to work out. You can't leave the house." And I'm like, she's probably right. I know I shouldn't say I know it's nothing. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like, I don't think it's anything, but I got to respect their wishes on this because nobody really knows what's going to happen here. And I didn't work out. And I remember the first time, I'm sure some of you did this too. We ordered pizza and they would leave it on the steps. I don't know if you dealt, okay. And my wife would take the pizza and put it in the oven even though it was piping hot, to kill any existing germs that she thought might be on the.
I'm sure we did. I'm sure we had something similar to that, like where someone go grocery shopping, we wipe down the blue bags or some crazy nonsense. Man, I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Nothing to say.
What a different time.
What happened there? Is that J-Rod? All right. No, thank you, Willie. I've actually done a couple of games on TV. I haven't done them in a while. I was doing some stuff for CBS Sports Network. Like, I did some Seton Hall games, St. John's. I did the, where was that? The Conference USA down at Southern Miss, which was a great environment. Did some games down in Annapolis, which was great to go on Navy's campus. Some other games I'm forgetting too. A couple of the Ivy games, whatever. I did some college baseball TV for a little bit, but no, I follow St. John's baseball like I follow Marist. And matter of fact, one time they had, this is pretty cool. This is probably about 4 years ago. So he was probably 7. And during the summer, I think it was like Mike Anderson's second year, or maybe even his first year. And they had like a private practice for season ticket holders and the big money boosters. And it was during the summer. So I took my son, and he met all the players, and like Posh and Shamari Pons and those guys, if you remember that team. And the baseball field was open, and which I played on when I was at Marist. We played them once. We lost 2-1, and the gate was open. I let him run around the bases. They were sitting in the dugout, pretending he was walking up to home plate. They got a good team. I mean, every year they have guys drafted. Very, very strong Northeast baseball team. All right, J-Rod, anything else we got to get to before we bounce? Hey, slap it up there. Special guest tomorrow. This is going to be a blast. Can't wait to get my buddy on the show. My good buddy. There he is. Yep. Now, a lot of times you hear this a lot. Oh, my God. You're going to hear somebody like doing a show and introducing my good friend, my good buddy, and they barely know the guy. Like they might have his phone number. They might text him once in a while. When I say that I'm legitimately friends with Michael Kay, I mean it. I've known him for 20-something years. We worked at 1050 together forever. I was at his wedding. He couldn't come to mine because the Yankees were in the playoffs there. And just a great guy. You know, him and all his quirks, him and all his brilliance with the Yankees. We're going to have a fun conversation. And it's funny, one thing I remember about Mike, I don't know why this stands out. Remember I was telling you the story the other day about when I ruptured my Achilles? Yeah. J-Rod playing hoops in the Urban Men Professional years ago. My dad, with the part of the story that I didn't tell you, which is actually pretty funny, I lived in a 4-story walk-up, okay, on the Upper West Side. Great apartment, and it was one bedroom. It wasn't even the studio. It was one bedroom. It was one bedroom. Nice, man. Yeah, it was nice, dude. It was a nice building right by Central Park. It was awesome, right?
And what street?
It was in the 80s.
Okay.
That was beautiful.
I had some friends who lived in that 91st, 92nd in Central Park area.
Right. I was right by Central Park West. I'd ride my bike to 1050. I would go along the West Side Highway and then come around. And yeah. So anyway, the problem was, and my dad, because I didn't have a girlfriend, I obviously wasn't married. And, my dad, being the awesome dad that he is, would come and pick me up. And first I went home and I stayed at my parents'. I missed work for a week. I stayed at where I grew up. So because I couldn't, had full surgery. It's tough. Pain meds and, getting up to go to the bathroom, just eat, a lot of stuff going on. And my dad was like a rock star, right? The same with my mom. So when I moved, when I was deemed, okay, maybe we could get back, he drove me and he would still come and pick me up and sometimes take me to rehab until I was at least functional enough. Then my station actually wound up sending, hey, they finally stepped up. They sent somebody to pick me up and then I would go to rehab and then I can get around on crutches. But long story short, I'll never forget. And when I went back to my apartment, I stayed in there for about a week. I didn't, I had people come and visit me, a lot of friends and stuff, including my dad, always going to get food, go great Jewish delis on the upper West Side, the soup. And, oh my God, the knishes. It was phenomenal. Actually, didn't mind it. I was getting weighted on hand and foot. Right. So the way I got up the stairs, I'll never forget this. Once my dad left, because he carried them up, when he left, I would take my crutches and I would throw them up a full flight of stairs. Now, if you know anything about a pre-war building, it's not a modern building. It's literally over 100 years old. Yeah. And the staircases are so deep and so high and also a little bit smaller in terms of width because the human body was a little bit smaller back then when they built these, right? So I would chuck these things. And I remember at the top of each staircase, there was a wall, so there wasn't a lot of room. So it's like throwing the freaking javelin. I had to be freaking perfect because every time, even if I got it on a perfect throw, most times it would ricochet off the back wall and come flying down.
Oh my gosh.
Dude,
that's dangerous.
Jay, I wasn't worried about getting hurt. I was trying to get up. Jay, it was brutal. So once then I had to do it the second flight, then the third flight, then the fourth flight. And once I was, lucky enough, because it wasn't skill, it was kind of luck, to get him to stay up there, not just one, but two crutches, I couldn't walk up the stairs. I would literally sit my ass on each stair, get me on the full screen, sit my ass on the stairs, right? I take my hands and push myself up each stairs with my back to the stairs, going upwards, backwards. Oh, bro. And then I remember I developed, and I don't have many phobias, although as I'm getting older, I notice I'm a little less reluctant to enjoy heights. That I noticed that's crept in a little bit. Thank God no other real phobias or fears. That might be the first time it crept in. I remember, so now I'm still on crutches, but I'm the pain's not searing. I'm getting a little healthier. When I'm finally going back to work and my dad's not there, it's just me, I had to do the opposite. I had to take my crutches and fling them down the stairs, which was simple. Yeah. But then I had to go down the stairs. And I remember, and I was hopping down on one foot. I was doing it differently, right? And I remember looking at this very sizable, very intimidating drop. And I remember getting nervous. I'm like, oh, I got to do 4 of these. And, eventually you kind of get a little bit used to it. You suck it up and you move on. But, man, yeah, if you're going to rupture your Achilles, live in a home or have an elevator.
Yep.
All right, dude. Just about tapped out for today. Is there any text that we need to hit before we bounce? What's first, Chef? They're good.
Right here. The game day lineup got announced.
Oh, it dropped.
Witt Jr., Harper, Judge, Schwarber, Bregman, Raleigh, Anthony, Buxton.
Oh, Buxton's starting.
Yep.
Okay, keep that up there. Keep that up.
Skeens.
Okay. Oh, so Skeens. Skeens going to pitch.
I
got you. Skeens will pitch Friday against Brazil. And then I would imagine Scuba will go after that because he's only making the 1 start that we talked about. So I had Witt first. All right, that was the easy one. Got that. I had Schwarber in the 2-hole. They put Bryce Harper. No issue with that. I actually kind of like that better. Judge 3, got it. Schwarber behind Judge. All right, so they flipped that there. I had Cal Raleigh 5. Oh, they got Bregman behind Schwarber in the 5-hole. And then, all right, I had Bregman 7. I had Cal Raleigh 5 behind Bryce Harper in the 4-hole. I guess I missed yeah. I had Anthony in the 6-hole playing left field. They got that. And I had Terang batting 9th playing second. They got that. And I had Pete Crow Armstrong in center. I got no problem with Buxton playing. There you go. He's going to hit 8th. Okay, I'm into it. Looking forward to it. Going to have a little bit of fun with this. Hey, get this out there. Obviously, like it, subscribe it. Got to get the likes up, guys. I'm doing my job. Those of you in here, you're doing your job. You need to do it better, all right? We are inching toward 18,000 subs. We just hit 17 the other day. Got to get the likes up. Got to get the comments going. Got to get the traction going. Got to get the shares on the shorts. Share the shorts. Don't just check them out. Share them. Trust me. It helps me, of course, but it also helps build out the show. I'm not going to tell you why. Obviously, I think you know why. But just the more you do and the more it goes out there and grows, the more I can do. So I'm out for today. Have a great day. Tomorrow is going to be awesome. So I'll be on at 10 as always, live at 10, 10:15. The great Michael K. My buddy Michael at 10:15 for at least 45. I might have to go to St. John's tomorrow. I thought it was going to be Thursday to shoot the show with Rick, but I got a text before. It's probably going to be Wednesday, but it's not going to be as early as it was last Wednesday. So I'll be able to do more of a full show. Anyway, little story time today. Bounced around, a little COVID, a little crutches going upstairs. A lot of football to start. If you just jumped in, I laid it out for Kyler Murray and all the Kirk Cousins, Tua, all the quarterbacks. Obviously talked about Brees. We got confirmation today. He got slapped with the franchise. Not a surprise. We knew that was coming. Now they'll work out the full-time deal, but they're going to have to carry that fairly. He's not going to sign for $14 million a year. It's going to be lower than that, probably 12 or 13. So it's a fairly exorbitant number at 14.1, but he's exclusive property of the Jets with the transition. Somebody could swoop in and try to sign him. That can't happen now. We knew he was staying put. If you didn't know that, I don't know what to tell you. I've been telling you that for a while. Muji wanted it to happen, got it done. Good job. Now they want to hammer out that long-term deal, which I absolutely believe that they will. Great confidence there. We'll see if anybody else gets tagged. I'm sure they will before the 4 p.m. deadline today. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Like it, subscribe, all that stuff. Catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.
This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me?
With your host, Brandon Tierney, and